Good day, everyone. How are you? Hope you're all doing fantastic. It's like December 24th, I think, and yeah, I've been doing some various tasks, catching up on work, and in the meantime, over the last couple days, I've been taking several notes, and I end up just, putting them in a book of notes and just letting them be. It's like by the time I get to make a video, I decide that it's either something that I can't, I guess I can't orchestrate my thinking well enough to put in a video format. And some of the things are so important that I don't want to just ramble on about them, and other things are so non-important that I don't want to waste the time to make a video. And one of those is, the political atmosphere, of course, in my country. It's absolutely absurd. It's right now, it's like America, the reality show, and it's always been this way. It's not that in the past, everyone was innocent. This whole thing going on with, the president of our country spending his day tweeting angry tweets off at people who he probably will never even have any more association with, or people who are merely speaking something that they disagree with him. And I don't even want to use the guy's name anymore. I'm so sick of hearing Trump. It's so absurd. I got off of it was my brother who was posting something on Facebook about Trump, and there was this one thread where this guy got in there and he started repeating these sound bites that he keeps hearing. The typical bullshit. Well, Obama was worse, and Hillary would have been worse, and Trump's improved the stock market, and our GDP is up, and all these things that anybody who doesn't understand even basic economics could think, oh yeah, go for it, everything's looking up. But in reality, it's just the income gap widening between the rich and the poor, which is something that has doubled, I believe, in the last 20, 30 years. A vast majority of the money is held by a few people. And one of the most absurd aspects about it all, I think, is that I heard someone the other day talk about, it was an old philosopher, I think it was on Big Think, or one of those, philosophy channels, and he says, how interesting that we're living in a time where, at this very moment, we have more millionaires and billionaires in positions of power within our government, within our Congress, more billionaires and millionaires than we've ever had in any time in history, by far. And yet, these very people are the ones who are saying that they're trying to defeat the elitists. And he says, how absurd that the media now is being called the elitists, whereas a majority of these are just people trying to make a living. I'm not defending the media, because I know the media, it had to be exposed for what it was, which is nothing more than a profit-driven machine. But what else would you expect? And this is one of the things about media that people don't understand, it seems. It's they're not just there to give you information. They're there to give you information that you will want to see and talk about whatever they think is important or whatever people will click on, so they can advertise, so they can sell more commercials, so they can get more money in their pocket, because ultimately that's what everything is driven by, is profit. And it's unfortunate. It doesn't mean that there aren't non-profit media outlets. I mean, even AP, or Associated Press, has been around. I believe they covered World War II, if I'm not mistaken. And historically, they've had some controversial issues where, like a couple of their reporters over the past decades, one guy was, shown to be making up small articles about military service members that maybe never existed. So within the media, there is a lot of bullshit, and there are fake articles. But what it's come to is the point where anything that we don't like is fake. And anything that we disagree with must be a false flag. It must be set up. It must be completely false. And we want to believe that we're living in a false paradigm, because that opens up the idea that maybe somebody's really in control. It kind of comes back to the New World Order theme. People often think that, and I bought into that years ago, thinking that there was a secret faction that really maybe, the Freemasons and various other groups who had nefarious intentions and wanted to dominate the world so they could have everyone as their slaves. But really, it's a matter of seeing that people are already slave-minded and taking advantage of what's there. And it's not creating a false reality, it's utilizing the reality, but at the same time pumping out propaganda and bullshit to convince people that, hey, smoking's good for you. And every time America wakes up and says, wait a minute, smoking isn't good for you, we don't want these commercials on TV. Well, then they move on to another country. And now, say in Indonesia, they actually sell cigarettes in front of the schools, single cigarettes to school kids. And they're little, Marlboro booths and whatnot. And laws are different everywhere. But what it comes down to is a matter of, it's not just about business practices, it's about maximum profit at the cost of anyone else. And this is what our government is doing, and this is what individuals are doing. But there is no one group that can dominate the world, and the reason why is because people are too stupid. And I mean that with myself included, that one person can be very intelligent and come up with some fantastic ideas. And you may get a group of 10 people, 100 people to agree with that. But the minute you start getting more and more people have different ideas about what they want. I won't get too much into that aspect, but I've done my homework on Freemasons. So, for example, my grandfather was a Freemason, and I was always fascinated with, I didn't really know him, but when he died, my aunt gave me all of his, Freemason stuff, his apron, his cap, his rings, and all that. And I was doing a lot of research about why Freemasons originally formed, and the image that I'd been told was that they formed this group in order to try to dominate or control and create this one world government. Well, at the time, the truth is the Illuminati is used a lot. I think that it was only the Bavarian Illuminati only existed for something like 10 years in the 1700s, but it's a representation or a metaphor for these elite groups who will convince everyone that they're on their side, that yeah, we're super rich and we're running your country, but we have your best interests in mind. And in the past we could actually believe that and go along with it, but today it's not happening. So we really are living in some sort of a reality show as we're trying to decide which way to go. I think the unfortunate part is that there are so many issues that we could actually be dealing with right now in our world if we were willing to get past the ego boost, the feather ruffling that happens between leaders of entire countries. And I think, if I was trolled by a president from another country and I was a president, the last thing I'm going to do is go on Twitter and start calling them names. It's the most absurd thing. It shows such thin skin. We have such a thin-skinned president in this country. Somebody who's so afraid of being ridiculed, so afraid of being teased, that he actually spends more time defending himself against insults than he does actually putting out any real information. And since his Twitter feed is the news, then people go along with it. And I let it go for months and thought maybe he'll actually make some changes or make an effort, or maybe he actually does have people's interests in mind. It's nothing I can change. He's president. That's how it is. But so far I've seen absolutely nothing. I've seen coal regulations removed so we can pollute the lakes and the rivers again. Tax breaks for the rich, as always. The whole trickle-down economy bullshit, and it repeats. So at this point it's like we get what we deserve. We get whatever's coming to us as a country, as people, but it's unfortunate that so many of us get caught up with it. And we're all trying to live our own lives. We don't want to wake up and worry about what's going on in the world as far as politics. We don't want to wonder if we're going to war tomorrow. And there's a generation of activists, but there's a generation of passive morons too. It's always been this way. There's always been a faction of society that really cares and wants to try to improve life for all people. And then others who aren't happy in their life, and so nobody else should be, or people who are so content and satisfied in their life they'd never have to want for anything and couldn't imagine what it's like to have to wonder if you'll be able to eat tomorrow. So the way I see it is as long as people are suffering in the world needlessly, when there are opportunities to help one another, it's going to be up to us as individuals. And the problem with the government is people rely on the government to bail them out, to help other people. They're surprised when there's a storm or a flood and FEMA's not there the next day, or they're not doing enough. What do you expect? I mean, we have limited resources, you know. The federal government isn't here to bail us out of everything. The federal government is supposed to be here to take care of the shit we want to get done so we can live our lives. The stuff that we don't want to deal with, the paperwork, you know. But instead of backing up and helping to defend the laws that we as people create, they create their own laws. And when they can't get a law passed, they just find a way around it. So the larger a system, the more chaos is within that system, and the more likely a component can break. So that's where we're at right now. I don't want to go much further on this because it's political, and I just wanted to get that out there. You know, anyone who really thinks that this current administration is for the people, I'm sorry, you're deluded at this point. If you can show me otherwise and show me what's actually happening to benefit people that isn't just ego-driven, then I'd be willing to look at it, because I want to believe that, you know, we're working towards something better. But if history is any gauge, we're in for some hellacious times before anything's going to get better. But I believe that we can pull through. I believe that people can find a better way, but I don't think the government is going to be the path to get there. And it's kind of a byproduct of a larger society and overpopulation on this planet. So, and I know people would argue that we're not overpopulated. I've seen statistics that say we have enough food if we properly harvested our food and used all the arable farmland, that we could actually feed up to 10 billion people. And that's supposedly true, but that's assuming we use all arable farmland, that there's no new desertification, no major weather catastrophes, and that the population actually caps itself around 10 billion. We're like 7.5, I think, right now. Who knows? The future is anyone's guess. We're all trying to figure something out for our own lives, and it's kind of hard when we're being prevented from doing many of the things we want to do. Because of legislation and rules and laws, but at the same time those laws protect us in many regards and allow us to flourish, so we don't have to worry about, you know, I don't know how else to put it. It's a very complicated issue. So I hope y'all are doing fantastic, and you know, really this isn't a bash on Republicans or even Trump. It's a bash kind of, or rather just a discussion about we as people. And sometimes we just want answers, but people are failing to ask the question. First, we have to find out what that question is and what we really want. And ultimately, I think that's happiness. So, if we can be happy, that's wonderful. But it's important that we look out for each other too, and I think that that's a key component that's missing in a lot of circles. So, have a wonderful day. Peace and love and all that shit. Talk to you all later.